September 21st, 2017, downtown San Francisco. The Sales Development Conference, the world's first and only conference focused and dedicated 100% to sales development. Learn, grow, and succeed with the top minds in the sales development space. Keynote speakers include Henry Schuck, CEO of Discover.org, Manny Medina, CEO of Outreach, Christina McMillan, Director of Research at Topo and legendary sales trainer, John Barrows, among many, many others. No fluff, no filler, just the data, research, and networking you need to grow your career and become a stronger sales development leader. Go to 10bound.com/conference to get your early bird ticket today. Again, 10bound.com/conference to lock in this incredible opportunity today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Development Podcast. I'm David Delaney, and I'm very excited today to introduce you to someone who has made a huge difference in my life, and I think that if you take a look at some of his material, he can make a huge difference in yours too. Anyone from a sales development rep to the CEO running a huge company, this is someone that you need to know. Mr. Tom Corley is an internationally recognized authority on habits and wealth creation and how they relate to wealth creation. He did a 5-year study of the rich and the poor, and he identified over 300 daily habits that separated the haves from the have-nots. Tom's a best-selling author and an award-winning speaker. His books include Rich Habits, which is the one that I first read and really got me into his work, made me really think about how my daily habits run my life and lead to the results that I'm seeing. And he just came out with a book called Rich Habits, Poor Habits, which I'm excited to dig into. He's spoken alongside Richard Branson, Robin Sharma, Dr. Daniel Amen, and many other notable speakers. Tom, thank you so much for being on the Sales Development Podcast.
Well, I'm honored, David. Thanks for inviting me on. I hope I can add some value to your listeners.
We live in the richest country on earth, but if you look at some of the stats, I'm looking at the U.S. Census Bureau 2015 estimates. It was estimated that 43 million Americans live in poverty, which is defined as a family of 4 living on $24,000 a year. And another 100 million live at twice the poverty line, 48,000 for a family of 4. So how is it that in the richest country on earth, we have these kind of statistics? And in Tom's study, over a 5-year study, he realized that habits, daily habits, is what separates. If you've got good habits, it's an upward spiral. If you've got bad habits, it becomes a downward spiral. And if you're like me, a lot of times you're kind of sleepwalking from your next project to project and not really thinking about what your habits are. So Tom, welcome to the show. Let's talk about these statistics. How'd you come up with the study, and what can we do to improve our habits and learn from your research?
Sure. So, by the way, I've written about just what you're talking about there. The fact is, David, that there's probably close to 140 million, as you mentioned, that are literally one paycheck away from being homeless, and that's frightening. So, and I know what that means because we went through poverty ourselves, and I guess I have a unique advantage over anyone in my space, which is the self-help space, or anybody that studies successful people or poor people, and that's that I've been in both worlds. You know, we started out. In my family, we were very wealthy. My dad was one of the most successful individuals on Staten Island, where we came from. And at the age of 9, we literally lost everything overnight. My dad had sold his business because this is random bad luck. It can happen to anybody, even wealthy people. So his business partner, who was the sales guy, he was in charge of the sales. My dad was the operations guy. The sales guy was 39 years old and had a heart attack and died. I'll never forget that Saturday that he passed away. And my dad was just, he was ashen. He turned white because he knew that guy was the heartbeat of the organization. So my dad ended up selling the business. He got at the time about $4.5 million for it, which is about 22 million, 23 million in today's dollars. And he was supposed to get paid 3 payments. They made the first payment. They didn't make the second. They didn't make the third. My dad took the business back 18 months later, and it was a completely different business. Same customers, same vendors, but the way that they ran the business was completely the opposite of the way my dad had instructed them to run the business if they wanted to succeed. And so anyway, he took the business back, and 30 days later, the warehouse burned to the ground. It was arson. They knew it. They just couldn't prove it. Anyway, my dad lost everything, and the inventory, including the inventory, which was about $4 million. They ended up. My dad had to pay the vendors $4 million because they bought the inventory on credit. My dad had never done that in all his years, so he owed the vendors $4 million. He could have filed for bankruptcy to close the business down and kept his $4.5 million that he had. He had close to 4.5, but that wasn't my dad. So anyway, we ended up almost going bankrupt ourselves, and we spent. I think until I left that. My parents moved out of their house in 1984, and that's when he finally retired. He was almost a millionaire, so he didn't quite recover, but he recovered enough that he had money to retire at age 63. So it was a tough go. I had to work as a janitor during college, 20 hours a week in order to pay for college because we had no money. So it was, all of us had a struggle, and I guess, but that experience stuck with me my whole life, and I had this really negative perception of wealth and negative perception of money because we always never had any, and so when I started doing my rich habits research, started interviewing all of these wealthy people to find out why they're successful. What are they doing? I was completely blown away, David, because my expectations were that they were pretty much that they acquired their wealth due to either family, inheritance, or nefarious means. They were lowlifes. They were they cheated. They were, they cheated people out of their money. So I had all of these negative perceptions, cutthroat, that kind of stuff. And holy mackerel, was I the opposite of right, which they just commonly call wrong. So I found out that wealthy people were actually superior in almost every department to poor people and middle class people. They were not only more honest, not only more generous. They were responsible for in their local communities for a lot of the nonprofits that existed, not only funding them but their time. Running the boards on many of these nonprofits. They had so many powerful relationship building skills, which I think we need to talk about since that's going to be important to your listeners. They want to know how to build relationships with the right people. So we'll talk about that. So there were so many things that I uncovered that altered my perception of wealthy people, and I came to not only admire them but to strive to be like them, which was the opposite of what I was trying to do up until that point in life, and that's why I was struggling in life. I think I was following the blueprint that I had in my head, which was something I learned from my mother. And when you grow up in a family that doesn't have these rich habits as we did, then what do you have? You have poor habits. So, and you struggle in life. So since 2008, I've adopted the rich habits, and my life has really transformed.
Yes, and I love how in the book you've got charts, that says, I'm going to call it poor habits, just because it's an easy moniker. I'm not degrading anyone by saying poor, but it's just an easy way to describe it. But it's like, you got your poor habits on one side and you got your rich habits on the other. And, it's just having it there on a chart makes it really easy to see the stark differences, which is I want to go into. But really quickly, as you were talking, I was thinking, when I was a kid, I was raised in kind of an upper middle class area. And the wealthy people were, in my family, it was always the specialists. It was the doctors, the lawyers, the really smart people. And I think, and then we never talked about money. It was always just, no, we don't talk about that, And so that kind of went into my head. And so when I got a little bit older, it was like, well, I'm really not that smart. Like, I'm never going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. So I started to resent them, because, and then that kind of warped me toward wealth and stuff like that. So that's just one story. But, I think it's important for people to look at how were you raised and what were your parents, telling you about money and stuff like that. And then as you did your study, it was a real eye opener, right? So tell us about what you started to discover as the statistics came back.
So one of the statistics I think that I was, I guess, a little taken back by was the exercise. I had this image of wealthy people in my head of them being, overweight, smoking cigars, eating copious amounts of food. And what I found out was the exact opposite. In fact, the wealthy in my study, I had to start tracking their exercise and health habits because they had so many good ones. Just a stupid one, I'll throw it out there. 62% of the rich flossed every day. Who thinks about flossing? Right? And the only reason it popped up is because they kept mentioning it. Well, I take care of my teeth. I was like, there wasn't one. It was like, 160 of them said, I floss. And then I said, well, let me ask that question to the poor people, because keep in mind, I did the study on the rich people first, and it was an afterthought, quite frankly, to study the poor. My wife brought it up to me. She said, well, that's great, what rich people do, but what do poor people do? You need to know what not to do. So on this particular one, only 16% of the poor people flossed. And I said, wow, these are habits. These aren't, this isn't being lazy. This is just, I wasn't taught to floss or told to take care of my teeth. So that was one. Junk food was another one. 97% of the poor people ate a lot of junk food. What's a lot? More than 300 junk food calories a day was my number that I used because I found it somewhere in some scientific or health blog. And 70% of the rich people ate less than 300 junk food calories a day. And exercising aerobically 30 minutes or more a day, 4 days a week, that 76% of the wealthy did that. Whereas 77% of the poor didn't. And why is aerobic exercise a rich habit? Because I found in doing my research for a book that I'm working on called Rich Thinking, I found that there's science behind this. The more you exercise, the more oxygen you take in. Oxygen does a number of things. It's used as a catalyst by your mitochondria, which every cell has thousands of mitochondria. They're the power plants of every cell. They use oxygen, combine it with glucose or what's the other one? Ketones, and they turn that into ATP, which fuels every cell in your body. So if you don't have enough oxygen flowing into your cells are struggling with energy needs, and that's why people who don't exercise are often more tired. They have less energy. And the other thing I found is oxygen is also used as a sponge to clean up free radicals. Free radicals, when the oxygen combines with the glucose or the ketones, it's like if you ever saw one of those tigers on the Serengeti ripping apart their prey. That's what's kind of going on inside your cell. The oxygen, when it catalyzes with the glucose and the ketones, it shoots all of this crap all over the place. These free radicals get loose, and they're bouncing around inside your cells. And if they hit the nucleus where the DNA is stored, they cause mutations, which create cancer, heart disease, and all sorts of things. So the oxygen acts like a sponge, soaking them up, and then it flows back into the blood. It goes into, I believe, the veins. I think the arteries. It goes into the arteries that flows into the lungs, and then it gets dispersed in the form of CO2. So it's a magnificent process. But it's the other thing that aerobic exercise does is it increases your IQ. So how does it do that? It increases the production of a protein called BDNF, which increases the production of new brain cells. It literally triples the number of brain cells that are produced every day, from 1,000 to 3,000. It also strengthens the myelin sheath that surrounds the axon. Every brain cell is made up of one axon, which sends signals, and numerous dendrites, hundreds, maybe thousands of dendrites that receive signals. So the myelin sheath is like insulation around a cable. The thicker it is, the faster the transmission, and also the more powerful the transmission. So these rich people had stumbled onto something. I don't believe they exercised because they knew all the neurology behind it. I think they were just doing it because their parents taught them this rich habit during their childhood, and they were doing this and increasing their IQ in the process. So those were a couple of things. The multiple streams of income, I found that 3 happened to be the magic number for rich people. 65% had 3 streams of income, at least 3 streams. 45% had 4 streams, and I think 27% had 5 streams or more. And when I thought about that a lot, because some of the people I've spoken with, Richard Branson, Robin Sharma, Daniel Amen, if anybody doesn't know who he is, he's got the Amen medical centers. They do spectral analysis of the brain. He's a leader in that science. And anyway, he has so many streams of income, Daniel Amen. I don't know how many hundreds he has. Robert Branson has hundreds of streams of income. Robin Sharma has many streams of income. So these wealthy people create multiple streams of income off of their core business, whatever that business is. And then if that core business, because of economic downturns, reduces their income, they have all these other multiple streams to rely on, to fall back on. So, I think the number one rich habit, if there is one, it's this: dream setting. It's the process of pursuing your dreams and then building goals around each dream. And that's important because dreams, when you pursue dreams, it turns on something in the brain, the reticular activating system. It starts looking for opportunities, the environment to help you realize your dreams and realize the goals around your dreams.
Okay. Wow. All right. So writing down notes, I just want you guys to know that this will be transcribed and we'll have notes when we post the podcast. So because this is huge, man. The first thing I'm thinking is I should have listened to my mom. Okay. The one who was saying floss every day, eat kale salads and then go run and lift weights. that I try to do that, but it's not always perfect. We got multiple streams of income, at least 3. So I want to go into that a little bit. And then the number one habit that you mentioned of pursuing your dreams. So I think, and just to level set, Tom, in your study, what were the big picture, data points? So you had, you said like 150 people, equal number rich and poor. And then you came up with over 300 different habits. Is that correct?
Yeah. So far, I'm just looking at my research summary, and it looks like I've got 344 habits that separate the rich from the poor. and they're habits, but they're also behaviors. There's thinking. There's how they spend their money. There's how they build relationships. There's a whole host of categories. There's 20 categories that I built 144 questions around, and then I asked those questions to 233 millionaires, individuals that had 3.2 million in net investable assets, plus they made $160,000 or more a year. I also asked those same questions to the 128 poor people, and the poor were individuals who made less than $35,000 a year and had less than $5,000 in the bank. So it was a two-part test in both cases, and I asked those 144 questions to both groups, and then I summarized everything into something I call the research summary.
Okay, and the research summary, was that kind of the genesis of the Rich Habits book?
Yeah, so I created this research summary, and then I started conducting training sessions, what do I call them? Training sessions, at 1 hour training sessions. I did that for about 6 to 8 months, and I just wanted to try and get better at communicating these rich habits in a sort of a seminar type forum. And what happened was some of the people in the group started having real success, and they begged me to write a book about it. So I was reluctant because I'd never I never sought to have a book published before. I was always a writer, but I never wrote a book and then had it published. So I actually wasn't exactly sure how to go about that. So I had to read a lot of books on that. And then once I got my feeling was, look, if you can pass the CPA exam, you can write a friggin' book. I mean, for God's sake, it can't be harder. Writing a book can't be harder than studying for and taking the CPA exam. And I was absolutely right. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was. Nothing is as hard as you think it is. So I ended up writing a book, and the book took off. I mean, it was like I can't say it took off immediately. It languished for about 3 years, and then Yahoo Finance interviewed me for one of their shows, Financially Fit, I think it was called. And that show, it was a TV show, a video they did, but that show had never had more than 400,000 hits. And when they ran my interview, we had 2 million hits within a 24-hour period. And one of the hits was Dave Ramsey, who was a big radio host in the U.S. He has 8 million, 9 million listeners. And I was scheduled to be on his show for 10 minutes. He had me on for a half an hour because just like, you're getting out of this, it's this stuff is is pretty unbelievable. So he wanted to keep me on for 2 more segments. And then the next thing I knew, David, my book was number 7 on Amazon in the U.S. in all book categories. That is so rare. It's a feat I haven't accomplished since, but I have broken through the 100 mark, but I haven't gotten as close to number 1 as that. I mean, I was ahead of J.K. Rowling's. I was ahead of Tony Robbins. I was ahead of that the woman who wrote the book Lean In. I can't remember her name, but her book was number 8. I was ahead of her. That book sold millions of copies, and my book took off after that. And the next thing I knew, I was being interviewed by CBS. I was being interviewed. The next thing I knew, a year later, I was in Success Magazine, and they interviewed me for their CD that they put in there. And it's just one thing after another. I've been in probably the media in 27 countries. I've probably had 100 million people have looked at my research around the world, and my 2 of my books are going to be released in China probably in July, and they have 500 million people in the middle class, so I'm excited about that. So this is just growing. It's snowballing.
It really is. It's evergreen, really, because you've got 140 million people, making less than, 50 grand a year with 4 kids or whatever, 4 people in their family. And to come out and say, look, we did this study. We have a comprehensive data set. Here's on the left side what they do to be wealthy, and here's what they don't do on the other side. And they end up not. With the success of your book, it really comes down to the habit, that you implemented, probably to get up every day and work on the book and stay focused and, pursue that dream goal that you put in, that you were going to aggregate this and get that knowledge out there. I mean, you really were using the rich habits to become successful, right?
Yeah, that's the great irony in this, because when I was just wrapping up my research, I run a CPA firm. It's a small CPA firm. We have like 6 or 7 employees, or at the time we had about 9 employees. Maybe we were doing about $800,000 or $900,000 a year, which meant I was making about $140,000 a year. Not bad, but I had 3 kids to put through college, and I had maybe $90,000 saved for college, it's a joke. And I was in absolute panic. I felt like a gun was put to my head with college. And I said, boy, I've got to get some additional streams of income ASAP. And so I added financial planning, which generated about $70,000 a year in income. And then I wrote Rich Habits, which was a revenue stream that generates every year about between 50 and 100,000 in revenue. And then I wrote Rich Kids, which was probably my best written book, and then Change Your Habits, Change Your Life, and now Rich Habits, Poor Habits, and now I have books going into China. I have books going into South Korea, so I have more revenue streams coming online. And the important thing I want to highlight here is this. You never know what thing is going to obsess you, but you have to follow the string. And so if you see a string, you got to pull on it and see where it leads. I pulled on the string that said write a book. And I'm glad I did, because when I pulled on that string, it revealed my main purpose in life, my calling, which was to be a writer to help people with these rich habits. And it turned on certain success characteristics that every one of us has. They're just turned off for most of us. It turned on, I wouldn't say, I'll be honest with your listeners. In 2008, or when I started my research, let's say 2004, I wouldn't have called myself an early riser. I wouldn't have referred to myself as a workaholic. But when I started doing that research, it turned something on inside me that made me get up at 4:30 every morning for 4 or 5 years, and I haven't stopped since. I still get up at 4:30, 4:45 every morning to do my Rich Habits stuff. And when you pursue a dream or find your main calling in life, or let's put it this way: when you pursue a dream, it reveals your main calling in life. It reveals your main purpose in life. And when that happens, it turns on all of these success characteristics that are embedded or hardwired into each human being. And when they're turned on, holy smokes, man, it's like you can't fail. It really is the thing that provides you with that passion energy. Passion energy is different from willpower energy, which is how most of us function. Passion energy is tapped into your emotions. When your amygdala and your limbic system in the brain are turned on because you're pursuing something you're passionate about, it gives you an enormous amount of energy. I can tell you, when I was writing Rich Habits, I did a lot of my writing at night between the hours of 9 and 11. Who has energy at 9 o'clock at night? No one. And so instead of me having a beer, which was my poor habit, I spent 2 hours writing Rich Habits. Now, that wasn't something that evolved. It was like got turned on immediately. I became obsessed and I started writing, and I basically got rid of all of these bad habits that I had because I pursued a dream that turned on passion inside of me, and it allowed me to work around the clock. It was amazing to me. So, this is why it's so important to pursue things that you're passionate about, which are usually dreams. Dreams reveal your passions, and you'll find out you don't have to will yourself to do the work. It just is something that happens. It's just the way human beings are hardwired.
I love that, and it's so great. You have to create time to be able to follow that, and your habit of getting up early and making that space.
Are you an SDR, BDR, or an ADR who's ready to step up to management? Are you a current team lead or SDR manager who wants to go to the next level in your career? Join Tenbound on July 19th, 2017 in downtown San Francisco for an immersive half-day live training class where we'll cover sales development, culture building, recruiting, team management, metrics, and designing your own career as a sales development professional. You don't want to miss this exclusive opportunity. Sign up today at tenbound.com/events. That's tenbound.com/events.
For the listeners, a lot of their younger professionals, they're getting into the professional world, and they're working really hard, and they may not really know what the rich habits are until hopefully they get your book. But tell me about you get up at 4:30 in the morning and you do your rich habits stuff. Like what's your rich habits stuff, and what are some things that maybe they can bring in?
So I devote an hour to an hour and a half every morning to reading. I do about an hour to an hour and a half of writing. And then I will devote anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour of exercise. I go to the gym. I lift weights. I'm a weightlifter. I'm not big, but I'm a weightlifter. I became a weightlifter in August of 2014. And I do that 3 days a week. It takes me about 35 minutes for every session in the gym. And then I religiously run every day. And I would say on average, I run about 20 miles a week. So I'm running almost every day, at least 2 to 3 miles. And then on the weekends, I amp it up a little bit, So those things kind of occupy my morning. I might also jump on social media if I have the time in the morning. If not, I'll do that first thing when I get into my office, and then at lunchtime, and then at the end of the day. So I'm trying to do my rich habits business. I'm trying to run that business around my core business, which is my CPA and my financial planning practice.
Oh, okay. So you're still right in there with both businesses.
Yeah. So amazing. I have right now 3 businesses. I have the CPA business, the financial planning business, and the rich habits business. And the CPA business occupies about off season, which is not during tax season. It takes up about six hours a day. And during tax season, it takes up about 12 hours a day. And then the rich habits business takes up about 5 hours a day, 3 in the morning and maybe 2, I squeeze in there somehow. And then the financial planning practice is probably another 2 hours a day or so. And usually at night between the hours of 6 and 8. So, I'm trying to do all of that in one day. And I'm able to do it because I have no choice but to focus like a laser, because we all were given the same thing, 24 hours. So the difference between people that are successful and the people that aren't successful is how they focus their time. So rich people focus their time doing certain specific things that help move them forward in achieving their goals and realizing their dreams. And poor people don't. They waste their time by, social media, watching TV, watching YouTube or whatever, Facebook. They just have believe it or not, poor people have more time than rich people, and they waste it more than rich people.
They just haven't categorized it. And like I was saying, I was in the corporate world for 15 years, and you can tell by listening to Tom, he doesn't work an 8-hour shift and like punch out and go home and like veg out in front of the TV. I mean, the way that you are successful is you've got that dream that you're pursuing, and then you've got the disciplines set up to implement your rich habits and pump a bunch of oxygen into your brain every day and sit down and do the writing, and you're moving closer, but it's not an 8-hour thing. I mean, it's like a lifestyle that's around the clock of pursuing your dream versus just like punching in, getting a paycheck and heading home for some YouTube videos,
Yeah. And I don't want to come off as a Superman because I was a B student, maybe a B plus student. My whole adult life, I would say from high school on. So I wasn't a good student before that. So I'm I can't say I have an average intelligence because I did have to take, you said you were in the corporate world. I was in the corporate world for 10 years, and in our finance department, they made everybody in the finance department take an IQ test. And I have to tell you, David, I was petrified, because I honestly believed I was an idiot. When I took the IQ test, it came back as 136. And my boss, who everybody knew was a genius, he came in at 134. And there wasn't a soul in my department who didn't fall off their chair when my IQ test came back, because I think they thought I was an idiot too, even though I wasn't. Anyway, my point is that my perception of myself was that I wasn't very smart, and my habits reflected that. And that's the thing where beliefs come in. If your beliefs are negative beliefs about yourself, you're going to develop habits around those beliefs. For example, if you think you're a bad student, you're not going to study. Why study? I'm an idiot. If you think you're smart, you're going to study more because you think you're smart, because you got to prove that you're smart constantly through grades. So if you think you're an average worker, you're going to build habits that prove to the world that you're an average worker. If you think you're an exceptional worker, you're going to forge rich habits that a lot of the wealthy people have. It's just the beliefs. Beliefs are the springboard to our habits. They are what happens first, and then habits are what happens next.
When you're in your 20s, you feel indestructible, and all your friends are having fun, and there's all these posts on Instagram with people with like Lambos and gold chains and all this stuff, and you're looking at that and you're just like, I just want to go party, But I think if you can implement the rich habits proactively before something bad happens, like you go bankrupt, or I call it like a threshold event, where you hit some event where it's like, oh my God, that's usually in your 30s or 40s. You go, oh my God, for me, it was, I got the pictures back from my cruise, and I was like, oh my God, like I need to go on a diet immediately. And then I started implementing the rich habits around the weight loss. If you can implement these habits proactively in your 20s, man, you're going to be way better off by the time you hit your 30s and 40s.
Yeah. And the point I also want to get across to your listeners is this. All you need is 1, 2, or 3 rich habits. These rich habits, the way I configured them was to be keystone habits. Keystone habits are unique in the habit world in that they're dominant habits. They're overpowered habits. They're the type of habits that force change. For example, let's talk about the exercise rich habit. So when you exercise, imagine you're overweight and you decide, well, I got to lose weight. You look at pictures from your cruise and say, I got to lose weight. So you start exercising a little bit every day. Maybe it's 20 minutes. You start out and you build it up to 30 minutes. And then, you fast forward a month later and you've lost about, say, 10 or 15 pounds. And somebody says, hey, David, you lose weight. You look pretty good. Well, you know what that does is it taps into your emotion center, your brain. It gets your ego going. And you start to think, whoa, man, I like hearing that stuff. So now you say, all right, I'm going to cut back on junk food. I'm not going to drink the 3 beers every night. I'm going to cut back to 1 beer. I'm not going to eat the 15 Oreos. I'm going to have 1 Oreo. So you start moderating your habits. The exercise habit actually motivates you to alter your other habits automatically. It's not that you have to force yourself. Your emotions get triggered. And next thing you know, you're cutting back on your smoking, you're eating, and you're drinking. And another month goes by, and somebody says, "Boy, David, you're really looking good. You lost more weight." And you just keep at it because it taps into your emotion center, your brain.
I love that. That's amazing. And so, exercise, definitely a keystone. Are there 2 or 3 other keystones, or should we just 100% focus on exercise?
No, reading every day for self-improvement is a rich habit. That's a keystone habit. What happens when you read to learn is you gain knowledge. And that knowledge, the more knowledge you gain, the more it opens up your eyes to opportunities. So the way I like to describe it is, imagine you're standing in a forest, but you don't know it's a forest. All you see is like maybe 100 trees around you, right? You see those trees are a metaphor for opportunities. So you see 100 opportunities around you. You see 100 trees. Off to the side is a hill, and that hill is a metaphor for self-improvement reading. So you start climbing that hill. You start reading every day to learn. As you get higher and higher up the hill, as you learn more and more, what do you start to see? You start to see that there aren't 100 trees, there's 1,000 trees, and you keep going up and you see there's 10,000 trees. Well, as you engage in self-improvement, daily self-improvement through this self-improvement reading or listening to podcasts or audio books or whatever, the more you learn, the more you see opportunities. You realize that as you get to a certain point, when your knowledge grows to a certain point, you see not 100 opportunities, but maybe 10,000 opportunities. So the self-improvement rich habit is a keystone habit because it starts altering your everyday behavior. You'll stop watching 3 hours of TV a day because doing so interferes with your reading to gain knowledge. So you maybe cut back to an hour a day and you amp it up to, say, 2 hours a day of reading because, well, why not? I'm making more money. Every time I read, I learn. And every time I learn, I see more opportunities. And when I take advantage of those opportunities, I make more money. So you start doing certain things through just that reading's rich habit that alter other habits. The relationship building habit, I want to get into this. This is important for your listeners. So I found that the rich do 3 things primarily that grow their relationships. One is the happy birthday call. The second is the life event, is the hello call. And the third is the life event call. The happy birthday call keeps your relationships on life support. At least once a year, you're going to call your relationships and you're going to wish them a happy birthday. What I found, because I've been doing this for many years, is 25% of the people will call you on your birthday. I call that the reciprocal happy birthday call. When that happens, it takes your relationship off of life support. Now, every time you make a phone call to anybody, whether it's a happy birthday call, a hello call, or a life event call, the purpose of that call is to gather information on your contact. You want to learn more and more about each of your contacts. And what I do is I write down new information. I ask questions and I write down new information. So you went to what college, David? What's the name of your spouse? How many kids do you have? What schools did you go to? Blah, 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 right? So you write this down and then I transcribe it over to Outlook, which works its way into my phone somehow through the magic of the technology. And And so now I have all of this information on my contacts just from the happy birthday call. The hello call is similar. You should make a happy birthday call once every 3 months to individuals that you want to grow relationships with. They're usually people that can help you in your career and your business or whatever. So you make those calls and you gather in more information. The life event call is probably the most significant call that you can make because it grows the roots to your relationship trees faster than anything. It's like putting your relationships on steroids. Imagine, David, somebody in your family dies and Tom Corley shows up at the wake, right? And you're like, wow, I had no idea Tom cared so much about me. And that transforms the relationship overnight. Or imagine you have a child and I send you a card or send flowers to the hospital room or whatever. It changes the relationship overnight. Why? Because life events are emotional events. And anytime you tap into someone's emotions, good or bad, you transform the relationship. In a bad way, if you do something that pisses somebody off, you transform the relationship. How? By ending it. They'll want to end that relationship. In a good way, you transform the relationship because now they will identify every time they see the thought of the birth of their child comes into their head, they're going to think of Tom Corley. Or every time somebody, the thought of a loved one who passed away enters their head, they're going to think of Tom Corley. Why? Because emotions lock in or create long-term memories. It's called long-term potentiation. Emotions create memories. You might have had a life event when you were young, whatever it is. I guarantee you that memory is still there. You can still recall it. I remember when I was 4 years old. Who has memories at 4 years old? I do. I remember when my mother was dropping me off at child care. And I remember where it was. I remember the event like it was crystal clear to me, as if it happened yesterday. And that was 4 years old. So these life event memories lock you in to the memory banks of whoever it is that you made the life event call to. So those are the three things that I would tell your listeners. If you want to build strong, long-lasting relationships, do all three of those, and you'll soon find you have more relationships than you know what to do with.
I think that's critical. And I think folks kind of rely on social media a lot for that. And they think, I'll just make a comment or I'll like something. But what Tom's saying is it's picking up the phone. It's actually getting in your car and going down there. It's face to face. It's a human interaction to support your network and add value, to your network. That's what it's all about. You can't get away with just liking something, right? Am I right there?
Right.
Yeah.
So let me put it another way. If you don't care about your relationships, then engage with them on social media.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a plant or something, if you just stop watering it and stop talking to it and taking care of it, it's just going to die. And I could totally see that happening. Yeah.
The only value in my mind with respect to the rich habits, the only value social media has with respect to relationship building is if you use it as a stepping stone so that you can then further the relationship by having, finding out what their birthday is and making a call, finding out what's going on in their life so you can do a life event call. So it's a stepping stone. It's not a bad stepping stone, but you can't use it as the means of building relationships. It will fail because think about it this way. You're doing what everybody else is doing, which is wishing somebody a happy birthday on Facebook. So how does that make you any different than anybody else? How does that tap into the emotions of a person. It doesn't. I can tell you, I get 1,000 because of my I have so many followers now. I get 1,000 happy birthdays on Facebook. I might get 2 or 3 people that call me, even though they follow my research. It makes me sick to my stomach. But these same people who I'm teaching and educating through social media, instead of picking up the phone or shooting me an email or with more, a more expansive happy birthday wish, instead of going the extra yard, they jump into the herd like everybody else. And what do? I have to do a blanket thank you back for all the happy birthday wishes. I don't know who sent me a happy birthday. The only ones I remember who care about me are the ones who called me or the ones who emailed me or did something else, whatever it might be. That's my point is if you're not really interested in growing relationships, then stick to social media.
Just circling back to this, original thing is, in your study of these hundreds of very wealthy people, the network that they had built up was critical to their success. And so not only are you building up your wealth, spiritually and emotionally by keeping in touch and interacting with humans from a human perspective, which is awesome. But, you don't want to just come at people when you're out of work or you're broke or you need help, because it's like, hey, I haven't heard from you in 5 years. Now you're broke and you need something from me. It sucks.
That's right. And I fell into that trap. When I used to work at Arthur Andersen, which is a big accounting firm, and I decided that I no longer wanted to be a CFO of my company, that it was a CFO of a publicly held company, because they wanted me to relocate my family again for like the 3rd time in 3 years. So I said, nah, I'm done with that. I'm not ruining my family over this. So I was looking for jobs. I was reaching out to people I hadn't talked to, since, 1992, 93, 8 years. And they had no interest in helping me. So if you're not building the relationships that you value on a daily basis, they're not going to come to the rescue. If you are, those relationships will pull you out of the deepest and darkest hole that you were in. And they will rescue you. They'll open doors that are shut. I'll give you a perfect example. One of the individuals in my study ran the commodities trading desk for a big international bank. And during the end of 2008, he lost his job along with most of the people on his floor, on his trading floor. And he called me up, and he was one of the few people that knew he was part of the Rich Habits research, because none of the individuals I interviewed knew they were being interviewed for a study. So he was one of the few, and because he was a tennis buddy of mine. And so he called me up and he said, you may not want to drop me off your list because I just got fired. Now, this is a guy that has like $7 or $8 million, so I know he was joking. I said, well, what are you going to do? And he goes, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off and then I'll get a job somewhere. And I said, how are you going to get a job in this economy? They're firing people. He goes, oh, trust me, I'll get a job. He called me up about a month later and he said, yeah, I'm going to be starting work this Monday. I'm working, in the commodities trading desk at another big international bank somewhere. And I said, well, how did that happen? He said, oh, well, I was always devoted to mentoring people in my career. I made an effort to mentor individuals. And one of the individuals that I mentored who left me my trading floor a number of years ago, I just made one phone call. He made one phone call, David. And the guy that he called was one of the guys that used to work for him who was mentored by him. And he said, I don't have a job for you, but I will hire you. Come in Monday. And we'll pay you, $250,000 a year. And he said, sure, great. That's fine. He was used to making $500,000 a year. He didn't care because he had $7 million in the bank. But his point was well taken. He literally only had to make one phone call because he had built such strong relationships. I told you the hello call, happy birthday call, the life event call. Well, the other one is mentoring people. This is why you want to mentor people. You wanted to create a swath of people behind you who you've helped in their lives, because those people will be the first ones in line to help you when something goes wrong in your life.
Tom, this is blowing me away, man. Rich habits, ladies and gentlemen. Pick it up. I mean, Tom's done the work for you, so he's got it all laid out. Tom, I'm going to pledge to you 1 hour of reading, 1 hour of writing, 1 hour of exercise, and I'm going to add 1 hour of reaching out to people by phone, because I totally, I'm going to confess, like, I've not been good about that. And I'm one of those people, 5,000 people that probably wish you happy birthday on Facebook, and that doesn't count. Mentoring folks, I pledge, man. This is re-energizing me. So, Tom, I want to thank you so much. I know we went a bit over time, but this has been so valuable for everybody who listens. And if they want to learn more about you and learn more about the book and whatnot, I know you have a website, right, that's dedicated to your publications? Yeah, so richhabits.net is my website, and I have probably like about 10,000 subscribers at this point. They get something every morning emailed to them, the tip of the morning to you. It's always tied to my research, some part of my research. It's always uplifting and motivational. I try and make it a little bit entertaining when I can. I also I blog, I write articles, and many of the articles wind up in Success Magazine. They wind up in Money Magazine, Kiplinger's. So you get it firsthand when you subscribe. You get all of this stuff just dropped into your email inbox, and you can also download a number of ebooks. I have a bunch of free ebooks. The Dream Setting ebook, which is, I think, one of the most important things to success, Rich Habits. That's an ebook, a small ebook, and I have research reports. And if you're interested in, seeing, some of my media stuff, I have in the news, and I have a page on the media. So I usually post some of the most significant interviews and articles there. That's awesome. And I get the daily newsletter. I would highly recommend it. It's a testament to your rich habits that you're putting in, because I'm going, God, how does this guy write something every day, or, cue these up every day? It's amazing, the work ethic, and it ties back to that rich habit. And I'm also going to go get the Dream Setting ebook right now, because that sounds really interesting. I like the concept there. So, well, Tom, thanks again. This has been absolutely awesome, and we'll hopefully be able to do it again and dig in more in another episode. No problem, David. Anytime you want me on, I'll be happy to, talk about other topics. There's, like I said, 344 of them. All right. Thanks, Tom. All right. Thank you.
Are you an SDR, BDR, or an ADR who's ready to step up to management? Are you a current team lead or SDR manager who wants to go to the next level in your career? Join 10bound on July 19th, 2017 in downtown San Francisco for an immersive half-day live training class where we'll cover sales development, culture building, recruiting, team management, metrics, and designing your own career as a sales development professional. You don't want to miss this exclusive opportunity. Sign up today at 10bound.com/events. That's 10bound.com/events.